we're going to shift the conversation a little bit away from taxes and shift it to talking a little bit about the Healthcare Reform Act. In the process of maybe touching a little bit on the abortion issue. Is there anything about the Affordable Health Care Act that you like? Obviously, you're saying that you're going to vote for its repeal. So is there any saving grace to it?
Well, there's actually provisions in there that, even though I might not personally favor it, the American people favor overwhelmingly, and that's why I talk about the consent of the governed. The American people overwhelmingly say they don't want pre-existing conditions. They want everybody to be able to get health insurance. Overwhelmingly, the American people say they don't want what are called rate ups. So if you have a pre-existing condition, that you pay a much higher rate for your health insurance coverage. And just to touch on one part of my background, I worked at the National Association of Insurance Commissioners for 8 years in their research department. And that is the quasi-governmental body through which the insurance regulators of the 50 states and territories figure out how to regulate the insurance companies. So it was a great education for what we're going through now, both on the healthcare law, now that they have the rural counties on crop insurance, that you understand that I was able to get an education on what a rating pool is, how insurance companies come to determine what those rates should be for any single individual. So there are things in the healthcare law that the American people want. And so I would be supportive of that. The reason I say to repeal is because there's over 2,000 pages in there. And the way it's written, it's very convoluted. That page 3 will refer to page 20, which will refer to page 1,000, which will come back to page 20. And it's difficult to understand what the real consequences of it are. So over 100,000 pages of regulations have been written for that one bill now, and they're not released yet. And so that's another reason why small businesses fear this particular law, because they don't know what the regulation is going to be. So I favor repealing that, bringing the elements that the American people say they like no pre-existing conditions, no rate-ups, those type of things that there's a fairly large consensus of 70 to 80% of the American people say we would like this to be in any healthcare legislation. Because we do have a system that's broken, that grew through fits and starts for different reasons. And what it essentially has done is it's taken you and me out of the equation with our physician. And what I would like to do is favor market-based reforms that bring you and your physician together to make those decisions in there. And what we need to do is start with a clean slate. There is a lot of pressure to get this done. So what we've seen in the past is people have played at this for decades and say, yeah, we're going to do this. Well, because this bill passed, there's a lot of players in the healthcare marketplace that are now saying, oh my gosh, if we get a chance to redo this, we're going to redo this right so it benefits the American people, but it also keeps the American people in charge of their own healthcare instead of the direction we're going now. I don't think people realize, I'm 56, the generation right in front of me is facing some, not you, the generation right in front of me, my mom's 78, they're facing a very sobering experience that they've already gotten used to in Europe. And that's where there's not rationing per se. They don't say, well, no, you can't have that. What they do is they do a different reimbursement rate. So the older you get, the less a doctor gets reimbursed for treating you. So what you get is de facto rationing. And I think that's going to be a very big culture shock for those who are 65 and older when they go in for care and they say, I want this, and the doctor says, well, I've got a patient over here I can get twice as much for, so you'll just have to wait. And so that's why those long waiting lines come from, is because of that. So there are things that need to be fixed in our healthcare delivery system. I just disagree with how this bill chose to do it.
Thank you. One of the big topics related to healthcare is healthcare for women. We get the short end of the stick for research, things that affect health issues that affect women. The funding is not exactly there as it is for issues for men. One of my questions is, where do you stand with equal pay for equal work with women? Now, it's totally shifted you.
Well, you did. And let me, there's something I forgot to say on healthcare. I think my solution is out there. I believe in big rating pools. And one of the examples I gave was a geographical area like a congressional district where everybody, if an insurance underwriter wants to write a policy for one person in that, they have to be willing to accept everybody. And so that's one of the solutions that are proposed, is that we have much bigger rating pools than we have like for a college or a business, and so that everybody is in a pool where they can get insurance. When it comes to equal pay for equal work, I believe in the philosophical part of it. I have two daughters and a son, and it's interesting that when we talk about this and you look at the people that are proposing like the Lilly Ledbetter Act, and you look at their pay scales of the people, well, the women on their staff or the women that work for them are getting less than the men for the same position. Now I think that the marketplace needs to determine the wages, but if you're doing the same work, then it doesn't matter, man, woman, child, you get the same pay. But that's the marketplace doing that. I think when the government starts regulating these things, we really start getting into bureaucratic problems, and companies start fearing that they're going to run afoul of something, and so it puts a damper on them hiring.